Good evening and welcome to the Upset Podcast. Tonight we are talking about being sad for the holidays or seasonal affective disorder coming up next. Hello again. Happy Sunday. Welcome back to the Upset Podcast. We're so happy that you tuned in on this Sunday. And when I say we're, you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about these wonderful people right here. Hey, guys.
Hello,
Hello
hello.
there. How are you?
Hey, what's going on?
Hi. I like how it's just like the four little squares here, filling up the whole box. How's everybody?
Squares missing.
I know.
It's a story.
This was before they got hooked up, Pat, because it's just four of us now.
Yeah, we need more. Exponentially, even exponentially. Now, I got tickled because remember that time I was talking about, oh, the weather's getting colder, and that day it was like 70 degrees or something.
Oh
else.
my goodness.
But now I think
Oh my goodness.
that the
Mhm.
weather is definitely getting a little bit more brisk out there.
What,
Mhm.
Did you guys get to pretty snow? I got a lot of snow.
Yes, I was excited about it. It didn't like-
Ceremonial snow.
Just a little flurries here and there.
yeah, it was
Just
just-
little flurries. You didn't get a covering on the ground?
No,
Oh,
I didn't.
you got a covering where you were? I'm jealous.
Oh, me? I got a covering. I got a good covering.
No.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, that you had to kind of scrape off. Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
Covering. Yeah.
I'm envious. I'm envious. What else is happening in the world this week, or happened in the world this week? that
Well,
stood
thank
out?
God for
Well,
all
I
those
was-
hostages being released.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say the
Thank
same
God.
thing. Yeah.
They're not letting us Americans go. What, the one little girl and the other young lady there.
Well, I think eventually they're gonna let them go. But my problem with all of this is, it's outside looking in, and they say, oh, we're going to pause to get humanitarian things in, and allow folk to be released. And then we're going to go back clobbering each other.
That's right. That's right. I don't get it. I don't get
Now, let me tell you why I get it.
Okay.
Hamas says we're going to make sure we destroy all of the Jews. All
Yeah.
of them. So what do you do? Just let them
Well,
destroy you?
you have to also understand that Hamas is not just the fighters over there. Hamas is an ideology.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're never going to get rid of Hamas. I mean, you might get temporarily knock out, whatever, knock out a few of them, but it's not going to go away. It's unfortunate that when I say we, the United States is even involved, because there are a lot of things that our leaders are making decisions that many of us are not happy with on both sides.
Right.
And now it's erupted into huge debates and arguments in universities and colleges, people getting accosted,
Very hostile.
assaulted. It's ridiculous,
Yeah.
because what we find is that there are Palestinian students over here that are studying and that are
And living
becoming
here.
professionals,
Mhm.
dual citizenship.
Mhm.
It's a mess. It really is a mess, and it needs a lot of prayer because, the way we are here, you speak positively about one side, then you're anti the other side, and
Right.
Yeah, you
You
have
know-
to pick a side. It's like you can't. If that's how
Right.
people feel, or they present it. Somebody's wrong or something like that.
That's like pro-choice.
Mhm.
It doesn't
Exactly.
necessarily mean that one
Mhm.
thing.
Right.
I'm glad there were people released, that were in
Yeah.
hostage territory. And what I learned in terms of the Palestinian releases of Palestinians in Israel is that many of them were imprisoned with no charge.
Yeah, I saw that too, Chuck.
Men, women, and children
Mm-hmm.
incarcerated.
Yeah.
Mm.
No trial, no charges. They were just locked up.
Kind of hoarded in there. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
horrible.
Yeah,
It's
I did
unfortunate.
see that. I said, Lord, that's rough right there. They can't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, this is evilness on both sides. The issue is we can disagree without violence, you know? We have become such a violent society that that's our response.
Right.
Well, we love it. A lot of there are a lot of angles to this. You know, the military-industrial complex loves it because of the money.
Finance.
That's a shame.
War brings
And
money.
we are, and unfortunately, we have proven to ourselves that we are intentionally savage. If
Mhm.
you can stop guns for 4 days and then elect to start shooting again, we have the capability of peace. We just don't want it. It's too much money to be made.
That's right. Like I said, war makes money.
That's horrible.
Yeah, this is such a hard thing because if it was us, the U.S., we would defend ourselves.
Oh, I have no problems with a defensive military. Not at all. I have no problem. It's just that it's just not my personal feeling. My personal feeling is that we're just in everybody's business. You know, I'm for a military to protect this continent.
Citizens. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Supposed to.
absolutely. But to be traipsing all around the world, I mean,
Right,
we
but
have
my
about
point was, my point
600 or
was, doesn't
700 bases around the world. Why?
yeah, because countries ally with each other to protect each other in times of war. So I get that too. But I was speaking of Israel. Don't they have the right to defend themselves?
Of
To
course.
protect. Now, I don't like all the innocent casualties. That's the saddest part, and all those children. So it does take a lot of prayer. So God, what do you do? Because horrific things were done to Israeli babies too, and children, and they raped the
Mhm.
young girls and shot
Yeah.
them, were mutilated. I mean, it was just
The root of all this is evil. It's just
yeah,
evil.
yeah. So you're like, God, please take over, because I mean, both sides are suffering, and the enemy is in the middle.
Exactly.
That's how I feel. The real war is between good and evil. And in this case, for so many, it's hard to determine which side either is on. But in the end, we know it's really just the enemy trying to do what he does best and divide us all.
I'm hoping that as people do a deep dive into that Palestinian and Israeli conflict, that we learn something from history, biblical history, and recent history of our country and other colonizing countries like France and Great Britain. I just think, as people, some people they're just curious. Why is there all this fighting? Why is there? So they have to dig deep, and they will find that this is not a new war. This is just a continuation of a war. And it's unfortunate that we have to just keep in prayer those that have been in prison, and those individuals who lost their families. Some folk lost the entire family. Just need a lot of prayer and support for those individuals. But I am glad that some humanitarian things got through during the pause. That's good. But I understand it's not enough, but it's something, because there were people literally dropping like flies in Palestine.
And the numbers are larger than we think it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we only hear about a certain amount. Mercy.
I was thinking when the young Palestinians were shot this week, right? Just walking down the street.
Yep.
And, I had flashbacks. I was like, man, that's how they used to treat us. Just lynch us, walking down the street. I mean, so much evil.
Well, look how our legislator, who is a Palestinian, what is her name? It's just,
I'm bad with
I just drew a blank there, but she was ostracized, and here she is, a U.S. senator or congresswoman.
Mm-hmm.
She's of Palestinian descent, and she stood up in support and defense of for Palestinians, and then her own
Yeah.
colleague, said, this is bringing out a lot of true color.
Yeah.
It's a lot of true
I
color.
guess because it's like what Tosh was saying, somebody's got to choose sides. And so they want to choose Israel because the attack was made on them. And so if you choose anything other, it's like siding with the enemy. That's why you really can't choose sides between the Israelis and the Palestinians. I mean, the Hamas people are the enemy. They're the ones that did all of this and started the war and plans to continue it. So
Well, I want to be careful in saying who started what, because I'll tell you, people who speak publicly about it, that there could
the
be
repercussions. I've been hearing that.
repercussions, and it's how we word, how we characterize our wording and what have you. Both sides, share the guilt here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll just leave it there, because we don't want folk to say, "Oh, Upset Podcast is pro-Israel, pro-Palestine." No, we're not. We're pro-peace.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I drove by church the other day on the corner and had on the marquee, praying for peace in the world. And it's funny, like, how it's not funny, but how there used to be this whole thing with pageants that every time one of the contestants was asked, what do you want to see change in the world? And
world peace.
Yes, world peace is always the response. But now it's come to a point where we're all kind of saying that, when we're in times of war and we see these things going on. But
well, on an up note,
yes,
I don't know what they're going to do today, but the Eagles are 10-1.
Ooh, nice.
I feel like, of course, when I say stuff like this, my sons say, "Man, don't say that because you're jinxing everything." I think they're on their way to the Super Bowl, but we'll see.
This is a pretty good record so far, 10-1. That's impressive. Go Eagles! We can say that. And also this weekend, this is Pelk in Huntsville, starting tonight. Well, actually, it started Friday night. It's a whole hymn thing, and there's a lot. A lot being added to the Pelk lineup. So
in those days,
So for those who don't,
Pelk will be there this year. I'm so sad.
I know, Marlena. It's not the same when you're not around.
Just one little old me. It's just sad.
It makes a difference. You sit right there, like the second or third row.
That's right. That's my seat.
I know. I'm telling you. So, yes, this is the annual Pastoral Evangelism Leadership Conference that's held in Huntsville, Alabama. They've added more than just pastors. There's any type of leaders, chaplains. They also have elders. Yeah, they have so many. It's anybody really involved in ministry and in leadership, and even Hispanic sector. They have their Spanish speaking side also on the campus, so it's really kind of cool. So some dynamic speaking to be had, and we're excited because our very own Pastor Corey Johnson will be one of the speakers. So
AEC
representing as always, and also tonight, Sunday night, Pastor Norman Miles is being honored. Honorees just recently retired.
He's actually retired today.
Today's his official day? Oh wow.
Yes, well, his first day of retirement. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Wow.
I follow him.
With his morning devotionals and stuff. Yeah. He keeps us up to date. Well, congrats to him and all the honorees.
Yes.
All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our topic for this evening. As I mentioned, SAD for the holidays, of course. We know that SAD is an acronym for Seasonal Affective Disorder.
Right.
And we've talked about this before on the show, but it's definitely one of those things that we kind of want to keep before everyone, especially as right now we're in between the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday. We're in, winter. The official winter season is coming in a few weeks. And this is the time when SAD, or this disorder, usually rears its ugly head. And so we want to just delve into it, have a little discussion about what it is, how we can pinpoint some of the signs, what we can do to counteract it, and just talk about it so we're more aware when we start to see these things happening with us or with people that we love. And so just going to start off with defining it. It really is, even though we call it a disorder, it really is a form of depression. Some people just call it seasonal depression. Some people call it winter depression. And the interesting thing about it is, based on its name, it usually hits you at particular seasons of the year. Now, normally we associate this with winter months, which of course are the colder, darker months, and a lot of that they feel have to do with it. But it can also happen during the summer. Did you guys know that? Like, listen how it says seasonal. So it could literally come to anyone at any season. Yeah, but it is predominantly found in the winter months. And I learned this in doing my research, that it's actually January and February where it's heightened the most.
Wow.
Yeah, January and February, which made me think about, you're thinking about January being the start of the new year and a fresh start. And meanwhile, some people are really struggling, and they may not know why they're struggling to kind of really get the year started off on the right foot. So, in talking about this, we can kind of help identify why some of us may be experiencing that. Have you guys, well, we're all familiar with it because we've talked about it before, but do you know anyone, or do you personally find yourself experiencing what you may consider something similar to that, like certain times of the year where you just seem to, routinely be a little more down than others?
Yeah, I believe, and I'll just speak for myself. I believe that every season there's a little bit of that.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, and I mean, it's not anything that is so overwhelming it just debilitates me. But I think we all suffer it to a certain extent, some more than others. And I think one of the triggers for that is how we've commercialized our holidays so much that we depress people who aren't able to keep up.
Yeah.
They don't have the funds, they don't have the family, they don't have all of those happy, wonderful things with the music and the carols. And they have no one. They have no one. They have nothing. And yet, we, as a culture, it's almost like we push that on them. Hey, it's Christmas. You should smile. Right. And some people say, for what?
Right.
Really, I'm just saying that, and not everybody. I think some people, a reality is brought to them in holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, where maybe there's some family members that are missing. Maybe there's a change in, your family structure some kind of way. Sometimes families are split up.
Right.
Season. And especially if people have lost loved ones, they'll say, oh, this is the first Christmas without mom, or first Christmas without dad. I think there are a lot of mitigating circumstances that kind of that could bring some of us down, period, without it being a quote unquote sickness or anything.
Right. Because they do say that sad is more than what you would call the winter blues, like those intermittent times where, we all have bad days. We have some days that are just not, we say get up on the wrong side of the bed or whatnot. But it's actually, as we know from just depression in general, linked to some type of biochemical imbalance in the brain that kind of prompts it. And they feel like that prompting comes from the shorter daylight, like we talked about, and less sunlight in the winter, because nature plays a part in how our bodies respond, believe it or not. And some people,
and lifestyle.
Yeah.
Lifestyle also plays a part. I think statistics are showing now that depression is up, period.
Yeah, that's right. And vitamin D is very important. And we really get our vitamin D from the sun.
Yeah.
And so once the sun starts setting, 4 o'clock, 4:20, 4:30, when that starts to happen, then there's a psychological thing that occurs. Number one, it makes you want to go to sleep earlier because it knocks off the your circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If I said that right.
That's
And
right.
so it just kind of throws.
Everything off. You just feel
throws
off.
Yep.
Yeah. And somebody was saying today how they hate it because like daylight savings time, because when the sun goes down, they literally feel like I can't do any more work. Like I'm just shutting down. And sometimes in doing that, you don't get things done that you have on your list.
Yep.
And then there's this cycle of beating yourself up because you're not being productive, and it just continues on.
We overschedule.
Yeah.
We overtask.
Yep.
I mean, even today, you get up and you think, okay, this is not a work day. I can do stuff. Then you just start stacking up the to-do list, like 10 to 12 different things. And then when you realize you're only through number 2, you start to get anxious. Like, oh my gosh, I got 8 more things to do.
Yeah.
Really? Just start out with 2 things. And we get those done. Maybe you can add something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But sometimes we do it to ourselves. We put ourselves in a position to get anxiety and depression.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more of that we can control. We just don't do it.
Right. So
Yeah, I think that the time management thing, Chuck, that you're talking about, which you really did an excellent show on that last time.
Mhm.
We do live very, very busy lives.
Very fast.
I look at my life. My goodness, I'm living a life for 3 people. And you try
Some
to.
help.
It is. You try to scrape
Yeah.
some things off, and everything you scrape off is so needed. And so, you are right. When daylight savings time ends is always sad for me.
Right.
I'm not a depressive sad, but like what you were saying, Pat, 7:30. I'm just, is it 12 o'clock? Is it?
Right.
Yeah, I know, right?
It feels like midnight, right?
Sure
Just
does.
45.
And you know what adds to that is the way we consume our meals. We have a circadian rhythm. It's for a reason, because metabolically the body does operate on that circadian rhythm.
Right.
And so if we find ourselves eating, late at night, that interrupts. Because by that time, the digestion department is shut down for the night. And we throw food down there and, digestion says, oh, what's this?
Or it works overtime that you're not getting the actual sleep.
Right.
that
Exactly.
you need
Right.
to get.
But I think for the season, I think another one of the things is the internet, and social networks have made major changes in our lifestyle. And advertisements. You see advertisements. Now think about the person who has a limited income or no income, and they're sitting down and watching all these commercials about gifts. Oh, get this gift, get that gift, and they would love to get the gifts, but they can't.
Right.
And we equate, I think wrongly, whether we like or love someone by the gift we get them, or the gift we don't get them.
Yeah.
I've experienced that myself many years ago, a situation where I bought a gift for someone, and when they opened the gift, they demonstrated that they didn't like it.
Wow.
As if to say, why did you?
Wait a minute. I'm checking for Carrie in the chat right now.
No,
Stop telling my business. Right?
no, it wasn't her. She's taught me how, some of the smallest inexpensive things can say a lot in gift giving.
Yeah, that's true.
I think some families have controlled that by saying, okay, no one in our family, whatever it is, extended or whatever, is to buy a gift more than $10.
That's good.
So you say, oh, okay, I can do that. If I got $100 disposable cash, I can buy 10 gifts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But sometimes that, there are other groups that don't work like that. It's like, I want the ribbon tied BMW in the driveway.
I just want to say too that and I know this has been said so many times, but I think we have to keep teaching people what really matters.
Yeah.
That it's not about gifts. It is really about, well, if we really think about what Christmas was about, it was about Jesus is coming, and that's it. But um, how we handle the holidays, right? You don't have to buy gifts, right? And don't be sad that you can't. And
Right.
don't feel bad that you don't get one.
Just one day and it's
Yeah,
over. Most
yeah.
people,
Don't
you
don't
know,
don't be stressed,
no,
right?
no,
Just
it's
don't
not worth
just if you have family, sit with your family and enjoy the day. And I pray that us as a
it. Right.
people, what I used to do is, in my area where I lived in Virginia, there were always those who were marginalized, didn't have anybody, didn't have much, we would invite them over for Christmas dinner, and no one was too, economically challenged for us to invite. You invite so they can have a good meal. And then we would buy everybody a little gift because we always opened our gifts in the evening. And so
Right.
we would so that everyone who was there with dinner would open up a little something, whether it was candy or a nice dish or a nice mug with candy in it. Everybody received something, and they were always so happy. So I throw that challenge out to all of us, especially as Christians. You have anybody in your church, that appears lonely, don't have many families? Let's invite them over. That's what it's really about. And even if you don't have to even have a big meal, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Just
Here's
Just the relationship dynamics
here's
is
yeah.
important.
here's my question for kind of changing this up a little bit. Um, I know we're talking about seasonal disorder. I always thought again that it was good. It was that that
It is his birthday,
Well, there's
right?
one
His
person that doesn't
birthday.
have.
Let him celebrate.
yeah, right. Yeah, sure, right. That it I always thought it was November, December, but
Mm.
to think of it being in that there are those who it occurs in the summer.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what in the summer?
Right. Triggers it.
But that's what, because it's not necessarily environmental. I think what we've been talking about is like the things that are influenced, but for something that's biochemical that's happening inside your body, it may not even be triggered by
Right. By
the holiday
daylight
per se,
or right.
but you're there's an imbalance somewhere inside of you. And so, some people don't know where it's coming from, because some people could have everything. Like, you see, like, people who have money who spend it and they still feel depressed. It's because it's not necessarily those external things. It's because there's some type of imbalance. And sometimes people don't recognize, somebody could say, I have everything, so why am I feeling so sad all the time? Why am I so fatigued? Why am I losing sleep? Why am I losing weight? Which are some of the symptoms that we see. And it's because there's this disorder, and sometimes it's not identified as such. And people actually experience guilt from these feelings, because they feel like, oh, how could I feel this way when I have so much? When it's like, I feel like part of what we're sharing today is, it's not you. It's not necessarily you. It's your body responding to some type of chemical imbalance. Because when I'm looking at some of the symptoms of people who suffer from SAD, and by the way, not that this is a small percentage, it's enough. 5% of adults suffer from this. And the interesting thing about it is, they experience it for 40%. It typically lasts 40% of the year for them. So when you think about that,
Oh.
that's almost half the year. If some people who experience these feelings, we talked about, like I said, feeling sad, loss of interest, change in appetite, change in sleep, loss of energy, increase in purposeless physical activity. Like, even writing for some people is like a challenge. Something simple as writing. Feeling worthless or guilty, like I talked about, or difficulty thinking, concentrating, or making decisions, or even thoughts of death or suicide. So if you think about somebody having all of this going on in their minds for 40% of the year, that's a lot.
Right.
I think a lot of that has to do with our lifestyle and our culture here.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to know in some other countries where the holiday traditions are different. It may be based on a different religion or whatever, if they have those kinds of depressions. There are some people who are just prone, because of metabolic issues, prone to depression. It doesn't even have anything to do with a holiday. They're just depressed. There may be some predispositions there that triggers depression, and holidays could be one of them.
Yeah, and they said that the most of the people that suffer are people who live far from the equator, because of that, the whole thing we're talking about the daylight and having fewer. So it just shows you how our internal is very connected to nature and certain rhythms. And so, and one of the things I found was interesting is that it can start at any age, but typically what they found is it starts when a person is between 18 and 30. So, even teenagers can experience this.
There have been some studies also about our culture here, which I think has been amplified and exasperated by social networks. But Americans tend to have a negativity bias. There are people that will see the glass half full, others will see it half empty. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, we have a lean towards negativity. I mean, for instance, just look at the social networks, look at YouTube, look at the thumbnails and the titles. Many of them are negative, and we are attracted to that. You could just say a blank statement like the world is rotting from the core. Well, people are going to go gravitate to that. Oh, what's that all about? How many people gravitate towards happy, stories or happy themes? And there have been some sociologists who have studied that we tend to have a negativity bias. We don't get up in the morning and say, whoa, how much bad news can I find? Mm-hmm. But when there is bad news, we tend to gravitate to that.
Mm-hmm. You can definitely amplify what you're already feeling. And for those people who are experiencing SAD, I just kind of want to throw out some known solutions because I just want people to understand, like, when you can't understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling, it may be more than just a bad day. And so
could you kind of name some of the symptoms again before you?
Sure.
Somebody may be sitting there saying, I'm feeling this or I'm feeling that.
Yeah, like fatigue, like you just feel like you have no energy whatsoever, even after you've had like a lot of sleep. Because some of us feel like, I just need to catch up on my sleep, and then you sleep and you still wake up feeling fatigued. If you're gaining like a lot of weight, because you're like overeating and you're just craving carbohydrates, and
even if they are called happy meals.
Exactly.
Tally number 2 on the line.
Yeah, you got it.
But the other thing too is it ranges. Like some cases are very mild. Like you may feel down, but you're still able to go to work and do what you need to do, or you may have a little trouble sleeping. You may have a little less energy, but you can still get like your work done, schoolwork done. But then the more severe cases are like you just don't want to be around anybody. Like it's social withdrawal. Like you just want to stay inside. Mm-hmm. Not only are you sleepy, but you oversleep like repeatedly. Right. Like I said, you start gaining weight, but then you just those cravings for those harmful foods could be a big sign that something's going on beyond just. And this is over an extended period of time. Okay, like we were saying, this is not just 1 or 2 days. We're talking about weeks of experiencing this and feeling like
So if our listeners notice that with either friends or family or colleagues, what's our reaction to that? What should we do?
Well, yes, that's a great question because there are several different solutions that have been recommended. One of them is light therapy. Have you guys ever heard of that?
Oh yeah, they have a lamp.
Yeah.
That actually can change your mood, but help with your mood. But before you go there, you should be able to have a conversation with your friend, a conversation with someone to ask them, do you notice that you're doing this, or do you, or your family member, You have to notice that they're doing it, because sometimes they don't even know that that's what's happening. And
Well, like
mhm.
in a very small example, my wife kind of diagnosed me in a way that when she's noticed, and she just said this to me one day. She said, "I noticed that on those cloudy days, you are quieter, you don't have much to say. You just your whole MO is different on cloudy days. Sunny days, I mean, sunny days could be pretty busy and stuff's happening, but it's sunny. And you feel like, I can handle this.
Yeah.
But as soon as it
Vitamin
gets
D.
cloud cover, it's like I want to go under a rock and just go to sleep."
Yeah, but
And
that's a good thing
then
to
she
see.
nailed it. She nailed
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
it's a good thing to
because
know.
it still happens today.
Mhm.
But it's
Like
also good,
today, it
Chuck.
started out sunny, and then now it's cloudy.
Yeah, it's like up and
But
down.
it's also too, Chuck, that you receive what your wife shared with you. Some people don't receive it. They're like, no, I'm not like that. No, I'm
Mhm.
good. You see
Denial.
depression all over them. I mean, depression is written right across the forehead, right? But they can't see it and they won't receive it. And when you don't receive anything, you can't get the help. You won't seek the help. And so
Right.
you just drown even more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's very
that's true.
possible.
And in addition to what was said with kind of helping people talking about it, I think that's really what you're talking about. Even talk therapy. So if you're not talking to a family member, maybe seek a mental health professional and just talk, get your emotions out, because if one of those tendencies to be withdrawn, a lot of that stuff can become internal. So you want to make sure that you're having a place where you can be aware of the behavior, share your behaviors with someone else who can understand what it is you're experiencing, because mental health professionals know what depression looks like. They know the symptoms. They're already familiar with it. So it's not going to be strange for them to hear you sharing these things. Because a lot of times we don't want to share with family members or friends, because we want them to be concerned, or we don't want them to think something's wrong with us, or we don't.
So let me ask this question: seasonal depression, although we kind of couched it up, with the holidays,
Right.
but it's not so much holidays.
Right.
It's literally season.
Yep.
Right. And seasonal can also mean the time frame, not when, but the longevity.
Right. Because not all year, it's just certain times. And for a lot of people, it comes around the same time every year. It's almost like a cycle. They even know when it's coming. Like they can feel it, like, oh, here I come, here it's coming up. And so that makes me think, if it's something that's happening to people on a regular basis, it's like, what can we do to safeguard it? And I think the same things that you do to treat it are the same things that you can do to kind of help get a hold on it before it happens. Like if you know this is a pattern for you, maybe you should start talking to someone even now,
Right.
before it hits, so that you're already in that rhythm, and maybe the impact won't be as great, even though it's coming. Because
And I found for myself, and I only speak for myself. I don't prescribe anything. I don't, suggest that people do things. But what I have done is concentrated on triggers. When I identify my triggers, then I can decide what to do about them. For instance, if there's an individual or a group that somehow, as we say, pushes the wrong buttons, if you stay ahead of that reality,
yeah,
you can manage it better. And I'm just saying, for me, that's how
no, it's true.
if I know what trigger's coming,
Yeah.
I kind of think ahead and go, you know what? I'm not going to let that bother.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to process it. They just, and then when you don't do that, it's, what's the matter? You're not saying anything. I said that before.
Yeah. Right.
That's true. And it does affect, I don't know if we said that, it does affect women more than it does men. So that's something to kind of
Why
consider.
is that?
That's a good question. I don't know. Because we exposed to the same light as you guys are, and the same, but I don't know. I don't want to say
So
it's
how do we combine or separate societal effects on side? So we talked about environmental and light and circadian rhythms. Are there any societal triggers that people experience that will take them down this road of sad? What are they?
I don't. I mean, I feel like it's hard to say that it's triggered by anything beyond some type of chemical
Chemical.
imbalance, because that's how it's defined. So I guess that's what separates it from other
The
like
depressive
I said, like a bad
disorders.
day. But I do know at the same time there are things you can do when you're experiencing it, which could actually help prevent it being as severe. So I guess it is kind of impacted because, they suggest that maybe you go do something you enjoy, or, go outside in the sunlight, or spend
Mhm.
time with family and friends, like, prevent yourself from withdrawing, and then just being intentional about eating healthy. So at the same time, there are factors that can contribute outside of that chemical imbalance or whatever someone is experiencing internally. So, I guess in a way, if you aren't already eating healthy, or you're not active, you don't have an active lifestyle, and some of us just don't, like Marlena, how you were saying you live in 3 lives for three people. If you never take time to do something you really enjoy, it can definitely
Did
wear
you
you
say
down.
did you say 3 lives for 3 different people? Did I do
Yeah,
Well,
Marlena is
My
in three living
schedule
Oh,
is
3 lives
so
in
busy. I live the
oh,
busyness of 3 people is what.
okay.
But may I say this to Tosh?
yeah.
What can we say to people today who have gotten comfortable in that solace of being
Mhm.
alone? They've gotten comfortable in when they're down, they just stay to themselves, they figure they find peace. This is where I'm best, especially if they're introverts, and they just stay there. What can we do to help them understand that that's not a good place to be?
You know, when I think about that, when I first heard that question, I almost feel like it's getting them in a space where they can be vulnerable enough to say, it's one thing for someone to feel like they have that personality. Some people say,
right.
I'm an introvert, I like to be alone. There's another place where someone recognizes that they feel most comfortable alone, even though they
Even
don't
though they don't.
like it.
Mhm.
And so it's almost getting them to admit whether or not they like the way it feels, even if they are, have resolved that I'm just going to be by myself and I don't want to be bothered. Helping them realize, is this really how I want to live, or if I'm accepting my symptoms and not willing to deal with them? I mean,
Well, I I tell you, that's a tough question,
yeah,
uh, Marlena, because sometimes we do more harm than good when we
Because we
force
don't.
on someone
yeah,
Right.
a lifestyle or a demeanor. Oh, why are you looking sad? Sometimes, like for me, I've experienced that with friends and relatives. Just leave them alone. I know that sounds, you
Yeah.
know, sometimes you just have to leave them alone. Leave them alone, but let them know that you're there.
yeah. That's
If
important.
you
Oh,
need if you need something, I'm here. But I'm not going to try to orchestrate your depression and your anxiety now. Whatever's triggered it, if you're feeling it, it's there. But just if you need to reach out, I'm here. And then
Well,
and then
relationship is important too. That's why it's easy for your wife to come to you and say to you, "Hey, this is what happens on a cloudy day." It's
Mhm.
also relationship. You're not going to walk up to anybody and be like, "Yo, what's going on?" Or
that's so
what's
sad.
happening.
Yeah. Hmm.
Right. But another thing is that we have to continue to normalize mental health, asking these
Yeah.
questions. Um,
Mhm.
we've gotten to the point where if we say something about it, it's some type of taboo, and
Yeah.
still is, and still could be. No matter what happens, it's still a part of the whole mental health.
Yeah.
Even if it's seasonal, it's still a part of it. It's
Yeah.
a piece of depression or a
Yeah.
part of it. So
And I
it's
think
hard
we
to
need to
have.
carefully dissect, not dissect, but carefully define what normal is.
Well, sure, you're right about that. Normal is different
Because my
depending on.
normal may not be your normal.
That's right. I agree with you 100%. I'm not going to walk up to somebody that I only see once us once every Sabbath and be like, hey, something has changed, or
Yeah.
whichever. It doesn't
And it's
happen.
not one thing, you may say someone looks sad, but if they're still sleeping regularly, if they still are not fatigued, or, that's just one symptom.
Right.
With this disorder, it usually manifests itself with multiple things happening simultaneously. So that,
And sometimes there are some hidden traumas that we know nothing about.
That's right.
Something that could have happened 20 years ago.
Hmm.
And, we're trying to dig and, hey, what's wrong? Sometimes, like I said, that's why if the information's not volunteered to me, I just leave people alone. I mean,
Sure.
I try to dig out of them and say, you need to be normal. You're not normal right now. You're quiet to yourself. You don't have much to say. Then I determine, oh, that's not normal. So let me try to normalize you.
Right.
Okay, guys, let me take this to another place because they teach us to be aware of what you see because sometimes people are crying out for help. And if we don't recognize or try to encourage, it can sometimes people are suicidal or
that's true.
they're so depressed and down, and that's why it's good for us to recognize, wait a minute, you don't, seem like yourself. Is
Right.
everything okay? I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like there has to be a good balance between letting people work through their situations and
Mhm.
then also kind of reaching out when no one else is. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
I
Because
agree.
everybody's, well, that's just the way they are. But sometimes people are crying for help and no one reaches out. So it's
Mhm.
like we have to find that balance. I'm sure this takes a lot of prayer and
Mhm.
wisdom and direction from God, to know who to speak to. But for me, I think we should be cautious and know when to speak and when not, because it could be the very time that someone needed help.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think the normal that we're talking about is their normal. So, like, if I know someone to usually be a jovial person who's always, and then suddenly you never see them or their mood is, then that's like a red flag. I mean, and that's what we talk about relationship, Pat, was that you have to know the person in such a way that you can identify these changes. And when you see those changes, don't say, I think you're depressed. You may just say, oh, is everything okay? And like Pat was saying, just letting them know that you're there or that you're seeing them and that you care could be just enough for them to reach out to you should they start to have some type of.
So if you get a response, if you say, hey, I know this person, I know they're jovial, they're usually very friendly and open and all, and now they're not. And you say, hey, well, hey, what's going on? What's going on? And they say, I'm just working through something.
You leave
What do you do on a
as it is.
response like that?
You
I
say,
mean,
hey, if you ever want to talk, I'm here.
yep.
Or, that's it. I think just having that invitation to say, I'm respecting where you are, but
Mhm.
just know that I'm available.
Mhm.
How about this, Pat? I know you've taken a lot of psychological classes. What about with someone that's like that? Because sometimes people are very private; they don't want to share. Just
Right.
Right.
call them every little now and then. Hey, how you doing? I was thinking about you. Just want to say hello.
Mhm.
How about something like that? That's just a
Mhm.
reaching out to
Oh
where
yeah.
when they normally just, stay
Right.
backed off, at
Sure.
least they know that you are reaching out and even the
Yeah.
person doesn't have to share, but they know that you care because you called,
You're exactly
Right.
right.
And
That's
there is some social etiquette. I mean, social scientists have said even with cell phones, we can get very intrusive with cell phones.
Mm.
It's suggested by some social scientists that they say, if you want to reach out to someone, text first. Is this a good time to talk? Can I call you in 10 minutes? Can I, instead of just calling,
right.
because the person will get that phone call and it's like, I don't want to talk now.
Right. Right.
and they
And if
won't.
it comes up, yeah, I'm just saying that if we reach out through our devices, one way to do it would be to just say, hey, just saying hi, can you take a call now? And let the person, so if they're,
It's in their court.
if they're down and out, they have the choice of saying, yeah, please call me now. I've
Yeah.
actually had that happen.
Mm.
I've had people respond to that question, is this a good time to call? They say, yes, please call. Okay. So they have something to say, something to
Sure.
share.
Mhm.
Sure.
But if we just barge into their life, like that Kramer coming into,
That's Kramer's entrance.
yeah, he just or just, I think that's one way we could help them through. At least they know that someone's thinking about them, and they have the election to reach out and call if they really need to.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's important, even having discussions like this, even in our church spaces, to talk more about mental health. Because what I'm finding in some of the circles that I've been in is that there are more people than we think who are dealing with.
Oh yeah.
And when one person shares, it opens up the door for someone else to say, "Oh, I'm not alone." And they share, and it creates this community of it's okay for us to be not okay together, but because we're together, we feel like we're going to be okay. And I think,
Would that be like that's not quite a 12-step program or anything, right?
Right.
I mean, everybody's sitting around in a circle, you know.
And that's what I was gonna say, creating more of those spaces. I mean, it could even be something like a prayer line,
Right.
because I've seen or been part of prayer lines where people are, it's in the chat, when there's prayer requests, someone will just put in the chat, pray for my mental health. And I was like, man, there was a time when people would never mention that. Like, to say that was almost admitting that you were crazy or something was wrong with you. And it's like, no, that's not what we're saying. We're saying right now, my thoughts are not what they should be. I'm not feeling healthy and I need prayer. And to me, even saying that, even within the context of a prayer line, is a way of saying, of reaching out. But I noticed that when one person does it, it unleashed several people to say, yes, pray for me too, or even share specifically what they're dealing with. And then it became kind of like a ripple effect. And there was this strength in unifying over a joint issue that was so taboo at one time, particularly for Christians who are too blessed to be stressed or too blessed to.
Are we dealing with semantics here when we say, like you just said, the person said, well, pray for my mental health. What if someone says, pray for my emotional health? Is it semantics? Does it mean the same thing? Because some people can be emotionally disturbed or emotionally off. They're not, it's just known on the street, crazy. Like, I don't know what they're doing. It's just, they have emotional help.
I look at emotional health as realizing that maybe your emotions are going to one extreme or the other in a particular situation. And you kind of just want to, neutralize how you, like, say you're really angry about something and for some reason you can't get this anger under control and it's like robbing you of your strength and you want help with getting that emotional side of you normalized. I see mental health as more of my thoughts are taking over my productivity. There's a lot going on in my head that it's hard for me to process, which is therefore making it hard for me to function with day-to-day activities. And maybe even having those thoughts that you shouldn't be having, whether it's harming yourself or doing something just destructive in general,
or harming somebody else.
Yeah, or harming somebody else. I mean, it's I think it's a certain amount of awareness that people are starting to have and understand that I can get help for this. Like, I don't have to stay stuck in this mental state of feeling so bad, or when I say bad, I mean like having these thoughts that are bad. Whereas emotional, it deals more with how you're feeling, and I think mental has a lot with how you're thinking, which then comes into your behavior. But that's just my interpretation.
Pretty good. That's pretty good. Pretty good.
I'm no expert. I'm no expert, but yeah, I just going back to how we can be helpful to others. I think it's good to, like you were saying, Marlena, check in. Recognize people's limits, but don't be afraid to speak up when you see something that's and even for us guys, we have to create spaces for people to be able to tell us about ourselves.
Same thing.
And not get defensive, to be able to say, I'm seeing something, because sometimes we are so busy, we haven't even taken the time to assess that there's actually something wrong with us. And if someone points it out, we may need to take a moment and say, you know what, I have been, and I haven't been sleeping, and going down that list and saying, hey, this applies to me. Because, once you know what's going on, you know how to kind of treat it in different ways. That's just what I'm thinking about.
So also just know that there are professionals on our website.
Yeah.
And,
we do.
where if you feel that you need to talk to somebody, you can go ahead and do that. There, um, 988 is the other number, I believe it is. Not,
Am I even hearing that bell?
yeah, no, it's
No, I
okay.
think time is
Did I?
up.
You're not crazy. It's not in your head. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm
So,
glad you mentioned that, Pat. We do, with our relationship ministries, we have a directory of Christian mental health professionals in various areas, within our territory and beyond, I believe. And so if you are interested in maybe getting a list, and people, reach out all the time and ask for this directory, you can go to our website, visitac.org/relationship men, and you'll see that clinical directory there for you to be able to click on and find a professional that may be able to help you, or you can refer to someone else you may have. And then there's on the site, here's also a site where you can get help, if you yourself are experiencing symptoms of, SAD, or know someone who, may need to seek some additional help. So there is help out there. I think that's what we're trying to say. And when you're feeling this way, understand that it's not abnormal, that this is actually a disorder that you can, treat or recognize. And that's the thing; it can be managed. And so when you're aware of that, it gives you a little bit hope, that one, you're not alone and you can do something
Yeah.
about it.
So let's not go down to Lowe's and buy these 500-watt light fixtures and put them all over
no,
your house. I mean,
no,
that's
no.
not the same thing.
No, yeah, I mean, that's light therapy on steroids there, but
Right.
yeah, try to get that light in as much as possible, and you don't want to be.
Sometimes a walk, in the park or in the woods, just being out there for a little while, it can calm your nerves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are ways to
Be
try to counteract.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Be proactive in it. Stay engaged in healthy activities, and keep the dialogue open with your friends and family. Even if you can't talk to everybody, find at least one person that you're talking to regularly, and don't forget to reach out. If it's not helping or you're not seeing any changes, reach out and talk to someone, who can prescribe you with something a little bit more, definitive to help. All right, guys. Well, thanks for input and dialogue on this important topic.
Hmm.
We hope that it, of course, will help someone as they're navigating this season, or whether it's the summer or whenever it may fall upon you, or if you know someone who's experiencing it, don't forget to share this with them, and hopefully they can see the resources and tips that we've shared.
All right.
All right. Also, don't forget, to check out our Upset store, where we have things like these hats. See our Pastor Duncan there rocking the Upset hat, and some of our ladies, from across AEC, who have their, Upset mugs. So remember, all of this benefits, a cause, of someone that we feel, or an institution we feel may be in need of some help. And so you can support it by going to our site, visitac.org/upset.
Yeah.
Let's make a difference in someone's life today. All right, guys. Well, yeah, thanks again for joining us. We'll see you back here next week, same time, same place, because it's Monday.
It's the Upset Podcast.
Woo!
It,
Love
it turned her down too when she said it.
it. All right, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.